From CBS News. Newly released Department of Justice documents show that investigators reviewing surveillance footage from the night of Jeffrey Epstein's death observed an orange-colored shape. I don't know about you, but orange-colored shapes move around my house all the time. An orange-colored shape was moving up the staircase towards the isolated, locked tier where Jeffrey Epstein's cell was located at approximately 10:39 p.m. on August 9th, 2019. That entry in an observation log of the video from the Metropolitan Correctional Center appears to suggest something previously unreported by authorities. A flash of orange looks to be going up the L-tier stairs. Could possibly be an inmate escorted up to that tier. That's what's in their observation log. This again reported now by CBS News. It also appears, according to an FBI memorandum, that reviews by investigators left disparate conclusions by the FBI and those examining the same video from the Department of Justice Office of Inspector General. FBI log describes the fuzzy image as possibly an inmate. I don't know if you know this, but inmates at 1039 are not going around in that area outside of their cell. So FBI, that doesn't make sense. The Inspector General logs it as an officer carrying orange linen or bedding. Okay. We now know, they knew when they wrote that in there, they knew that bedding is delivered the shift before this, so it would have been 5 o'clock in the afternoon before these people were even in. That's when you deliver bedding. No one is allowed on that floor at 10:39. You would have to log in. So, delivering bedding? No. The guards say that would have been a breach of protocol, and you would have had to sign something. The final report says approximately 10:39 p.m., an unidentified CO appeared to walk up the L-tier stairway, so we're no longer just an orange shape. This orange shape seems to have legs, and then reappeared within the view of the camera at 10:41 p.m. Official reports state that Epstein died by suicide sometime before 6:30 a.m. when his body was discovered before breakfast, blah, blah, blah. An in-depth analysis of surveillance video from the jail, CBS News previously reported on the figure on the stairs and consulted independent video analysts who say the movement was more consistent with an inmate or someone wearing an orange prison uniform than a corrections officer. The new records raise more questions about the activity near Epstein's tier late that evening. Official reviews of Epstein's death make no mention of the figure in... Official reviews of Epstein's death make no mention of the figure in orange. And later pronouncements from authorities, including the Attorney General at the time, Bill Barr, were that no one entered Epstein's housing tier the night of his death. Last summer, in an interview on Fox and Friends, then Deputy FBI Director Dan Bongino said, quote, "There's video clear as day. He is the only person in there and the only person coming out. You can see it." Prison employees interviewed by CBS News said escorting an inmate at that hour would have been highly unusual. The identification of the individual could have been crucial to reconstructing the events. You think so? Given that the sighting occurred within the estimated window of Epstein's possible time of death. Okay, I warn you, this is about to get worse. The staircase leading to his cell tier was captured by the only camera known to have been recording that night, positioned in a way that partially obscured the approach to Epstein's tier. Government investigators relied heavily on that footage in reconstructing the timeline of the events. But because of the camera's angle, it was not possible to rule out whether somebody could have climbed the stairs and entered the tier without being clearly visible. CBS News analysis of that video found additional contradictions between what the video showed and the official statements. Okay, you ready? Buckle up. I just learned some things in the next few paragraphs that I didn't know. Among those interviewed were the 2 corrections officers assigned to the unit that night. Let me just ask you, what do you know about these guys? All I know about these guys is they fell asleep. Okay, that's all I know about them. Tova Noel and Guito Bonhomme were assigned to the unit that night. They've not been publicly identified until now. Documents show Bonhomme was interviewed twice in September 2019 in sessions conducted in lieu of a grand jury subpoena. Interesting. According to Noel's account, Bonhomme had been working multiple consecutive shifts and slept while on duty for a period of approximately 10 p.m. and midnight. Investigators also questioned Noel about the unexplained change in the recorded number of inmates in the SHU, which appeared to drop from 73 to 72 sometime between 10 and 3 a.m. She said she was just probably mistaken about the discrepancy and told investigators she had no memory of a count changing. Okay, I'm just going to just dismiss that one. That's just somebody just writing the wrong number in. Okay, let's just go with that. You can't do it with the rest of this stuff. Neither officer were specifically asked about the orange-colored figure noted in the video observation log. Bonhomme told investigators that he did not remember the period between 10 p.m. and midnight, said he had no recollection of anyone walking up the stairs towards Epstein's tier around 10:30. Yeah, because he was asleep. He added, however, that a jail employee entering a tier alone would have violated all of their policies. Probably sleep would have too. A separate internal presentation, included in the document release, described a corrections officer believed by investigators to be Noel carrying linen or inmate clothing up to the tier. The 2023 Inspector General report did not identify Noel as the figure seen in the footage. In her interview, Noel told investigators, "Distributing linen was not part of my duties. I never gave out linen, ever, because that's done on the shift prior." Okay, so they leave this out in the Inspector General report, but they do not address the orange figure that is moving up. They just say it's not these two. You ready? Okay, here we go. Thomas and Noel failed to complete inmate counts at 3 a.m. and 5 a.m., as well as mandatory 30-minute wellness checks of Epstein. All night long, they didn't do any of those things. Thomas and Noel were later charged with falsifying records certifying the inmate counts had been completed. Federal prosecutors eventually dropped the charges in exchange for cooperation agreements that included interviews. A transcript of Thomas's interview, conducted 2 years after Epstein's death and released in the recent document disclosure, shows significant gaps in his recollection of the morning Epstein was found. Ready? Thomas told investigators he discovered Epstein in his cells shortly after 6:30 a.m. on August 10th, and that he ripped Epstein down from the hanging position. Investigators asked, "What happened to the noose? What happened to the noose? Have you heard any of this before? What happened to the noose?" Quote, "I don't recall taking the noose off. I really don't. I don't recall taking the thing from around his neck." Noel, who remained standing at the cell entrance, told investigators she saw Thomas lower Epstein to the floor, but did not see a noose around his neck. The noose Epstein allegedly used has never been identified. According to the Inspector General's report, a noose collected at the scene was later determined not to be the noose used in Epstein's death. Okay, all right. First you had us believe that it was a paper noose. Now you're saying the paper noose that was found was not the noose that killed him. In fact, you can't find the noose, the paper noose. And this one was later added to the scene. By whom? By whom? By whom? By whom? By whom? Thomas also described Epstein as shirtless when they found him. Evidence records indicate a shirt believed to have been cut from Epstein's body was later returned from the hospital in a bag of personal stuff. New documents also show that New York City's Office of the Chief Medical Examiner reviewed the jail surveillance footage 6 days after the death as part of his investigation, but concluded the video was too blurry to identify any individuals. Hours later, the office publicly ruled Epstein's death a suicide. Wait, you don't have the murder or suicide weapon. The weapon that you do have, the noose, is not the noose that killed him. No explanation on how that arrived later at the scene. You have a blurry figure. I don't care that you can't identify. You have a blurry figure going up in the middle of the night, and you can't identify that individual, but it's a blurry figure going up, and yet you rule this a suicide. That is fascinating to me. By the way, CBS News previously reported on the office's unorthodox handling of the crime scene. Okay. Let me do a commercial and then come back. And let's just think about this for a second, shall we? What is the biggest problem in America right now? What is the problem that we face? I think there are two big problems. One, we have no idea how our government works. We can't describe our rights. We can't describe our responsibilities. We have no idea about the three branches of government. No one knows how this system works. And so it's working however it wants to work because the people have fallen asleep. There's problem number one. Number two, because the people fell asleep, there's all kinds of shady stuff going on that we all know now because it is so, I'll bet you a third of our budget is gone in graft and bribes and whatever. I'll bet you a third of our federal budget is nothing but a con. Okay? You know that. I know that. You can't trust the media. You can't trust anybody anymore. And now when they release, this is the problem with the Epstein thing. Okay? This is the ultimate test of trust. You have to get trust back or you don't have a nation. So nothing has felt right with this. Nothing has felt right with this. I don't know what you're going to find, if anything, because I think so many people are involved. Would I like to get to the bottom of this? Yes. Do I think we're going to get to the bottom of this? No. But thank God people are still looking into it that actually have the ability to look into it. We still have a FISA warrant out or a FISA request out. Not FISA. That's why I was getting screwed up. FOIA, a FOIA request, Freedom of Information Act, about this. And we've been stonewalled from the government. I'd like to know why. Man, you know what? It would answer a lot of these questions, I think, because what we FOIA'd is happening right at the time that they're saying there's nothing to be seen here. So, thank God people are still digging in and looking. But let me just go through the problems that this has now caused. You have an orange flash on the stairs. Were you told of that? Have we ever heard that before from any source in the government? We were told there is nothing there. Clearly, friends and foes both looked at that video and said there is nothing there. CBS had some analysts look into it, and they're like, well, what's that orange thing moving up? That's obviously a person. Okay? I thought there was nothing there. Problem number two. They knew this right away. They knew it right away. And then they dismissed it as if it was nothing. 3. There's no time of death. The medical examiner said because they took the body down, he couldn't tell a time of death. Now, all my criminal CSI knowledge comes from television. And I know reality is not television. But you can't tell me that because you move the body, you couldn't put your hand on the corpse and go, okay, that was an hour ago, or that was last night at 10:30. Just the body cooling would have told you something. The medical examiner cannot assign time of death. Well, that's interesting, because if you could say it happened between 10 and midnight, maybe we would have been able to narrow things down. But because it could have been done at 3 o'clock in the morning, could have been done at 5:45. They walked in at 6:30. He might have done it at 6:29. That's bullcrap, and you and I know it. And then the worst thing is, they don't remember the noose. Nobody remembers taking the noose off. Nobody remembers seeing a noose. And then another noose, which they have determined was not the noose used, just magically appears in the cell later. Excuse me? I mean, there's just no way to square this circle. There's no way to do it. You cannot, with any credibility, say, yeah, this guy committed suicide. Now, it may turn out that he committed suicide, but not until you lock all these other things down. Who put the frickin' noose? The cameras weren't working at 6:30. The cameras weren't working at 6:30. They were turned off, okay? And they said, well, I don't know how. One of the first things you would have done is, how come, did we see anybody walk in? No, those cameras weren't on. At 6:32, somebody would have said, turn the damn cameras on, right? Nobody saw anything. Nobody. Who came into the room? That would have been a crime scene. Who had access to the room to throw a noose inside? My gosh. There's a reason why we don't believe the government. There is a reason. And it's this kind of crap.